Okay, so there's this movement that has been spreading all over the internet, promising its followers something, well, something pretty extraordinary. It's called NoFap, and it all started in these online communities with one single, really radical idea.
And at its very core is this almost mythical promise. As this user puts it so perfectly, it's a community built on the belief that if you just abstain from masturbation and pornography, you will unlock superpowers. But what does that actually mean?
So, what exactly are these so-called superpowers that have managed to captivate hundreds of thousands of people online? What is everyone really chasing here?
Well, the claims are pretty staggering. And look, proponents aren't just talking about minor improvements here. They are describing a complete and total life transformation. People report everything from crushing depression and social phobia to suddenly gaining a sharp intellect, boundless energy, and the motivation to completely reinvent their lives. Some people even claim their voice gets deeper, more masculine.
But beyond a simple list of benefits, what really defines this movement are these incredibly powerful personal stories of transformation. So let's just take a look at one of the most compelling accounts from the community, from a user who actually documented his journey for almost a decade.
And this user's story is it's incredible. He describes himself as a wonder kid who completely spiraled into addiction. By 2016, he's dropped out of university, he's hit rock bottom, but just 1 year later, he passes a major exam and lands a government job. Now, the journey isn't a straight line, of course not. There are setbacks and struggles, but his reflection after almost a decade really gets to the heart of the movement's appeal. Life is all about that constant fight of falling down and getting back up.
And that's the key right there. For him, rock bottom wasn't the end. It was the necessary catalyst. It was almost a punishment for his past that gave him the fuel to rise again. And this powerful story, this narrative of redemption, is absolutely central to why this movement is so appealing to so many.
Of course, for every story of redemption, you're gonna get a wave of intense skepticism. Not everyone is a believer, not by a long shot.
And the debate could not be more polarized. On one hand, is this a natural path to unlocking our own potential? Or, on the other hand, is it a harmful, modern cult, totally built on placebo effects and just plain old self-denial? I mean, the two sides aren't just disagreeing, they are describing two completely different realities.
Skeptics relentlessly, and I mean relentlessly, point to the lack of scientific evidence. This user's comment just captures that sentiment perfectly. Where are the studies? They argue that complex life problems, like depression or a lack of confidence, they can't possibly be caused by a single simple act. They see it as just finding an easy scapegoat. And even the supposed hormonal benefits, they come under fire. Critics point to data showing that, while testosterone might spike around day 7 of abstinence, it then quickly drops right back down to baseline. So the argument is that any boost you feel is temporary, it's ultimately insignificant, and that really calls into question one of the core biological claims of the whole movement.
But maybe the most interesting debate isn't even between the believers and the skeptics. It's the one that's happening inside the community itself. And this is where the focus shifts from just willpower to brain chemistry, as they try to figure out who the real enemy is.
So this is the key question that so many users are grappling with. Are we targeting the right behavior? Is the problem the physical act itself, or is it something else entirely? A really significant part of the community lands right here. They argue that the act itself is totally natural. You even see it in animals. The real issue, they claim, is its modern pairing with the endless, intense novelty of internet pornography. And their whole explanation for this revolves around a chemical you've definitely heard of, dopamine. It's the neurotransmitter your brain releases when it thinks it's about to get a reward. The theory is that internet porn provides this unnaturally easy, high dopamine reward that basically hijacks our brain's natural system. And this creates what they call a vicious cycle. So first, your brain gets flooded with easy dopamine from porn. In response, your brain, trying to protect itself, adapts by shutting down its own dopamine receptors. So what happens next? Well, now you need more or more extreme content just to feel normal. And the final kind of devastating step, everyday life, talking to people, finishing a project, going for a walk, it all feels dull and unrewarding, which just drives that cycle of low motivation and depression even further.
So, after all the debate, the superpowers, the brain science, what's the ultimate takeaway? What's the final word from the people who've been on this journey for years?
The most experienced users, including that man whose nearly decade-long journey we just followed, they all land on a much more nuanced conclusion. NoFap itself isn't a magic wand that solves all your problems. The point isn't really about NoFap. The point is about you.
Instead, they see it as a tool. Think of it as a mechanism to build discipline and reclaim all the time and mental energy that was being spent on an addiction. That conserved energy can then be channeled into other things like fitness, learning a new skill, reading, or building a business.
And ultimately, it's about something much bigger. For a lot of these people, NoFap isn't the end goal. It's the first domino to fall. It becomes the catalyst for building a more disciplined life, forcing them to confront not just one addiction, but maybe all of their addictions.
And that leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought. In a world that is just saturated with easy dopamine and instant gratification, maybe the real superpower isn't magical at all. Maybe it's just the simple, incredibly powerful discipline to choose a harder, more meaningful path.